Awesome. My name is RJ Pinesi. I work here in our career and professional development office. Like I had mentioned, this session is going to be recorded. This is going to be sent out probably later on this afternoon or into the early evening, depending on which time zone you're located in. Attached to that recording is going to be a questionnaire. We value your opinion as WGU students and alumni, so please, should take you no more than 2 minutes. Fill that out for us. And then if you want to go back and reference anything that's covered today, you can always do that in the recording. The chat is open, as people have realized with posting where they're tapping in from. We will have a designated Q&A at the end of the session. So what I would say is hold off on any questions. We want to make sure we get through the material. So feel free, when it is that designated Q&A, you can post those into the chat and we're happy to read those off to our presenters. Or if you do want to raise your hand and ask your question by coming off mute, you can certainly do that as well. So what I will do from here, I am going to share my screen. Bear with me 1 second, and then I will pass it over to our presenters. And just let me know if you can see that.
Yep, I can see it.
Awesome. Cool. Well, what I will do is I will pass it over to our presenters today. Do you want to take it
Thanks,
from here?
RJ.
Yeah.
You betcha, sir. Again, thank you so much for having us, WGU. Being out west, being in Idaho, I'm very familiar with Western Governors University. There's some great things that WGU does. So when RJ reached out for this Career Quest opportunity, of course I jumped on it, and then of course reached out to one of our amazing recruiters out of BLM Alaska, Crystal Sma, who will introduce herself in a minute, to partner with me on this Career Quest opportunity. So first and foremost, I wanted to just talk on this first slide. We are the Bureau of Land Management. The Bureau of Land Management falls under the U.S. Department of Interior. So some of our sister agencies include the National Park Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, Bureau of Reclamation, Bureau of Indian Affairs, just to name a few. Our mission with the Bureau of Land Management is to preserve and protect approximately 245 million acres of public land across the United States. That is public land that ranges from the western slope of Alaska all the way to the eastern seaboard, Jupiter Lighthouse in Jupiter, Florida, and everything in between. So with all of that being said, RJ, if you would just go to the next slide, I'll introduce myself and we'll take it from there. So quick introduction about me. My name is Milo Espinosa Davis, and I am a recruiter, HR specialist with the Bureau of Land Management located here in Boise, Idaho. Prior to the Bureau of Land Management, I spent almost 26 years in the United States Air Force. At that time, I was an aircraft maintenance technician, and then towards the latter part of my career, I switched into human resources and recruiting. I've been married for 25 years, 26 years now. I've got 2 kiddos. I've got a beautiful dog named Jack. My introduction with the Bureau of Land Management started a long time ago. My great-grandfather, who immigrated here from Mexico, he and his brothers were horse wranglers, and they were contracted with the Bureau of Land Management to break wild horses. They got paid a nickel a horse, and if anyone has ever worked with wild horses, you can imagine that is a very rough job. But he ended up making enough money to become one of the largest grape producers in the state of California. So mathematically, think about it, a nickel a wild horse to become one of the largest grape growers in the state of California, saying that during Hispanic Heritage Month. So all of that being said, my email address is on there. Please take a screenshot of that, m2davis@blm.gov. That is for everyone to utilize if you ever have questions on vacancies. Secondly, my phone number is on there. If you ever have questions or if you'd like to reach out and just kind of learn more about the BLM, please feel free to reach out to me. I recruit specifically for Idaho, Arizona, and eastern states. And Crystal will go into hers as well. But if you have questions about um, positions not located in Idaho, Arizona, or eastern states, or in Crystal's case, Alaska, we're still more than happy to help connect you with the right recruiters or the right HR folks in those respective states. Lastly, my LinkedIn profile is listed on this as well. So if you'd like to connect on LinkedIn, what we can do from there is we can have a side conversation and set up time to answer additional questions on that. So with that being said, next slide, please.
Good afternoon. I believe it's afternoon where you are. It is still morning here in Anchorage, Alaska. My name is Crystal Sma, and I'm so happy to be here with you all today. I am a human resources recruiter for the Bureau of Land Management here in Alaska. I am married with 3 children. My oldest son attends Tuskegee University in Alabama. My other son is a senior in high school, and then my daughter is in 8th grade. These are just some photos of me around the beautiful state of Alaska. I went to the University of Alaska Anchorage and got a Bachelor of Arts in English. I've been having the opportunity to do recruiting and retention work for the past 20 years. And I will say students are near and dear to my heart, having worked in higher education and with different school districts. My father was an Air Force as a retired Air Force chaplain. So that gave me the opportunity to visit a lot of the states that you all are from and around the world. I was first introduced to the Bureau of Land Management through my kids. Taking them to different activities. We have something here in Alaska called the Campbell Creek Science Center, and they do a lot of education outreach to the community and have things for children and stuff. So that's where I got involved. I enjoy traveling and spending time with my family, and I have a passion for connecting people to opportunity. And feel free to reach out to me. My contact information will be in towards the last slide, and I also did put it in the chat. So thank you all for taking the time out of your schedules to talk with Milo and I today about career opportunities at the Bureau of Land Management. Next slide, please.
All right, so I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview on the Bureau of Land Management. I discussed some of this earlier, but we'll just kind of deep dive it a little bit more. So the Bureau of Land Management falls under the U.S. Department of Interior. We have approximately 10,000 employees nationwide, and that, like I said, is everywhere from that western slope of Alaska all the way to the eastern seaboard. I'll give you an example here within BLM Idaho. We have individuals that are remote employees. We have an individual that's on our team that's a remote employee out of Hawaii. We have an individual that's a remote employee out of Germany. She's a military spouse. So we have positions all over the United States. Some of those positions can range from remote, some can be hybrid, and some can be telework. So as we talk about specific states, and when you specifically see this map here, most of the land that's managed by the BLM is focused on your 12 western states, but there are positions that are nationwide. Our organizational structure is pretty standard. We have a headquarters office, which is in Washington, D.C. We have state offices. My state office is located here in Boise, Idaho. That's the state headquarters office. And Crystal, correct me if I'm wrong, your state headquarters is located right there in Anchorage, correct?
Yes.
Outstanding. Within those state offices, you'll typically have some district offices that will flow under those state offices. Those district offices kind of have a more wide range of mission accomplishment that they're going to be responsible for. Underneath those district offices, you're going to have a field office. And those field offices, that's where it gets very centric on what a mission of that specific field office is going to be. So for example, you could have a district office located in Twin Falls, Idaho. That they could have an overarching kind of mission. And then underneath that district office, you'll have a field office that's out in the middle of nowhere, and their job is to, let's say, monitor a sage grouse population. So those field offices are a little bit smaller. They're typically going to have anywhere from 10 to 15 individuals working in those field offices, and their mission set is pretty precise on what they work for. We also have 3 centers across the United States. The first center is going to be the National Training Center. That is actually in Phoenix, Arizona. The second one is the National Operations Center, also known as the NOC. They're out of Lakewood, Colorado, just south of Denver. And then some of you may have heard of NIFC. NIFC is the National Interagency Fire Center. That is the hub of all wildfire activities managed by Department of Interior, and they're actually headquartered here in Boise, Idaho, probably about a 10-minute drive from where I'm currently located right now. So if you see wildfires in some of the states that I did see in the chat block, when you're dealing with wildfires, much of those wildfires are going to be managed out of that NIFC, National Interagency Fire Compound, here in Boise, Idaho. Next slide, please.
And so our mission is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of public lands for use and enjoyment of present and future generations. Simply put, we want to make sure that this great land is not only here for us to enjoy, but generations to come, that our children's children can enjoy this beautiful land that we have the opportunity and privilege to live, work, and play on. BLM manages 1 in every 10 acres of land in the U.S., and that's approximately 30% of the nation and approximately 30% of the nation's minerals. So we're looking at land and minerals, and we have a lot of different careers that are involved in making sure that happens, from people monitoring the streams to the, going out and testing different things. A lot of science is involved in that. We also work, we don't do this alone. It's a big mission. And so we work with livestock operators, recreationalists, utility companies, a lot of nonprofit organizations, state and local governments, and also tribal governments as well. Next slide, please.
Absolutely. So prior to starting this call, RJ had made mention, he gave us a number of the amount of students that were actually going to be attending this call. And I didn't get a chance to explain this to RJ, but I worked a career fair last week. It was the Federal Executive Board career fair put on by the Office of Personnel Management in Los Angeles, California, Inglewood to be exact. And there were a total of 755 candidates that actually came by and spoke. Out of those 755 candidates, I think the individual who was running the career fair said that I spoke to about 700 of them. I can tell you it was nonstop from 10 a.m. till about 4 p.m. I'm telling you all of that to say that one of the common threads that I actually was asked last week was when people would walk up to the booth, they would say, "Oh, well, I don't have a biology degree, so I guess I'm not able to work with the Bureau of Land Management," or "I don't have an ecology degree, so I guess I can't work for a land-based agency." And that could not be further from the truth. The priorities of the Bureau of Land Management, like Crystal mentioned, is to preserve and protect the public land for everyone who uses that public land. Our priorities include energy production, specifically clean energy production, the restoration and conservation of the public lands, the recreation that we have for outdoor enthusiasts, and to rebuild the agency. And we'll go into a little bit more details on each of these. But what I want to say with regards to what our priorities are is that it takes all sorts of different disciplines and all sorts of different educational and skill backgrounds to do what we do and to make it work. So for those out there, I wanted to let you know, I have a background in human resources and I have a master's degree in sports management. You do not have to have a degree in a science-based field to have a job with Department of Interior or the Bureau of Land Management. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much for that, Milo. And so the priority that I love, even though I love all of them, but being a recruiter, I love the one of rebuilding the agency. And that's what we're here talking with you today. And we want to make sure that our diversity and inclusion statement is, as a federal agency, our workforce of the BLM strives to be reflective of the people we serve at all levels, from the top all the way to the bottom, and occupations across the nation. Individual differences are recognized and encouraged to maximize our commitment to quality services. So recruiter roles within BLM are fairly new. Milo was one of our first recruiters for the agency. And, we really know that we need to be able to, the agency sees value in people coming into the workforce, and we want to make sure that it is mirroring the population of the U.S. So we welcome everyone here, and we would love for you to join us and truly consider a career with BLM. Next slide, please.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Crystal. You know, as I travel across the United States, one of the things that I find is the further west you are, the more of a knowledge you might have with the Bureau of Land Management or Department of Interior as a whole. Most people know about the National Park Service. Most people know about Fish and Wildlife Service, but not a lot of people, the further east you go, know about the Bureau of Land Management. And so one of the best parts of our job, my job and Crystal's job, is to go out and to educate individuals about the career opportunities that are out there with the Bureau of Land Management. So I spoke about it a little bit earlier, and I'll kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive on some of the career opportunities that we have with the Bureau of Land Management. So we have positions that fall within our biological science core. Those are going to be your botanists, those are going to be your ecologists, those are going to be your wildlife biologists, your fisheries biologists. They're the ones who are typically going to be in the field doing the work. You have positions that fall under your business and administrative services. Those are going to be your administrative type of positions. Those are going to be your budget analyst type of positions. Those are going to be your information tech, your cyber roles. Those are also going to be your human resource positions like myself and Crystal with what we do. You have cadastral and land surveying roles. You have engineering roles. You have your fire and aviation positions, which a lot of people know under Department of Interior. A lot of what we do is Bureau of Land Management manages a little over 60% of all of Department of Interior's wildland fire and aviation programs. So we have a huge chunk of the wildland fire program under the Bureau of Land Management. We also have our law enforcement and safety field. We have special agents that are in the field. And then we also have our social sciences field as well. So a couple of you have actually hit me on LinkedIn already and said, hey, I've got a degree in history. Where do you think I could fall in? Or I've got a degree in outdoor recreation. Where do you think I would fall in? And some of those social science fields, that is where we're going to have your archaeology, your outdoor recreation type of planners, those type of roles. So again, regardless of what your degree is, there's a place for you within the Bureau of Land Management. We do have some positions that have what we consider to be positive education requirements, and I'll just give you an example. If there was a position available as a petroleum engineer, what that means is you have to have a degree in some sort of engineering background to qualify for that job. A job like mine or a job like Crystal's, human resources, administrative, something along those lines, you may not have to have a positive education requirement. You might not have to have any sort of degree at all to get into those roles, but those education requirements will be listed under USA Jobs as the positions are advertised. And again, you can always reach out to Crystal or myself if you have questions on specific careers. That's our job, to help you kind of whittle down exactly what those qualifications are. Next slide, please.
Thank you for that, Milo. And speaking of that, it's just these are some opportunities that are open to students and graduate opportunities. This is the time to really be exploring different careers, getting into an internship, seeing what is out there. And some of the different programs we have our Pathways internship. And this is a paid opportunity that allows students to work at BLM while you're enrolled at school on a full-time or half-time basis. And these positions can be found on usajobs.gov, as well as there is a federal internship portal. And what we'll do is Milo and I, following this call, we will make sure we send an email out with the links for these different opportunities. We also have a recent graduate program. This is a one-year program, training program that puts you on the path for your career. So these are students that are recent graduates. And then we have our PMF program. This is our President Management Fellows program. This is a 2-year on-the-job training and develop program for advanced degree candidates. So candidates that are working on a master's or doctoral degree, this is a program. And then we have a Public Land Corps. This is a great opportunity open to people between the ages of 16 and 25 to get an opportunity to work on conservation projects. And we partner with American Conservation Experience, as well as the Student Conservation Association, the SCA, and different other organizations for this. And then last but not least, we have our Department of Interior Direct Hire Assistantship Program. And this is an 11-week rigorous internship program for current students or recent grads. So you want to make sure that you are, and we'll get into it in another slide, that you're on USAjobs.gov looking at the federal internship portal for these great opportunities that are available and only available to you as being a student. So really take advantage of your role as a student right now and some of these great opportunities. Next slide, please.
Yeah, thanks, Crystal, about some of those internships and those students and recent graduate type of roles. If you're thinking about a role within the federal government, and specifically if you're thinking about a role with the Department of Interior and the Bureau of Land Management, those pathway programs and those recent graduate programs are amazing. We typically start recruiting for those roles usually around the end of October, first part of November. It really just depends on when headquarters releases those positions and allows us to apply for them. But as you'll see those positions come out, like Crystal said, those are great ways to get your foot in the door and great ways to take advantage of working for the federal government and the great benefits that we provide. So some of the benefits that we provide within the federal government is you have great medical insurance, and this is done through the federal insurance program. You've got great dental and vision insurance coverage as well. You have flexible spending accounts, you have life insurance, you've got long-term care insurance. For those of you that were in the military or some of the spouses or family members out there, you probably remember the Thrift Savings Plan, TSP. You can actually carry over your TSP from the military into your TSP as a federal civilian employee. Or if you're not prior military, you can actually have and establish a TSP program. And it's a very inexpensive way to start a retirement plan for yourself and for your family for the future. You've got personal leave days, vacations, sick days, family care days, those type of things. And you also can qualify for the FERS, which is the Federal Employees Retirement System. That's a program that is great. A lot of companies nowadays do not have those retirement programs that are out there. So if you're looking for a job and a career that will actually give you the safety and the security, the federal government, specifically the Bureau of Land Management, is a great place to be. One of the things I will say is that I remember before I joined the military, everyone said, well, you're not going to get rich being in the military. And that was true. You're not going to get rich being in the military, but I always had enough to have a great lifestyle for myself and my family. The federal government, a lot of times I'll talk to people about this when I go and I work these career fairs, and they'll say, well, yeah, I could make twice as much working for this private firm down the street as a cybersecurity analyst, and that may be true. You could do that, but one thing I will say about the federal government is it's a great way to have a career. There is safety and security within the federal government that most people aren't going to receive with private sector. You do not typically have to worry about showing up on a Monday morning and having a pink slip on your desk. So if you're looking for that, and if you feel like the safety and the security and doing something that is bigger than just yourself is important, working for the Bureau of Land Management and taking advantage of these competitive benefits are definitely a great way to go. Next slide, please.
Those are all great points. And as you know, I was looking at the chat and the different areas that you all are from. That's another really cool benefit of the federal government is you have the opportunity. If you're in California and you want to move to New York or wherever, you can apply and get a job and have a job. I know that's how we were in Alaska, and then my husband had found a job in Texas. We moved there. Now I'm back here, but you have the opportunity to travel across the U.S. So that's a great benefit of another great benefit of working for the federal government. And then join the BLM team. How you apply for our jobs, as I had mentioned earlier, is through usajobs.gov. What you'll want to do on there is you'll want to create a profile. And what this profile will help you do, it'll help you save information. You can put your information on there. It'll help you with automated job searches. You will be able to select what type of jobs. Maybe I only want to see remote jobs. Maybe I only want to see jobs that are open to certain different types of hiring authorities, which we'll go into later. You also can search for jobs. You can search for, like I said, location, salary, schedule. You can do a whole bunch of things if you create this profile. So that is your first step to a federal job and a job with the Bureau of Land Management, is to get on USA Jobs, get familiar with it, and set up a profile and create an account. Next slide, please.
All right. So as you go through the process of applying for a position on USA Jobs, and I think we've all been there. I know Crystal's been there. I know I've been there. This job specifically that I'm in right now, this was the 77th attempt in applying for and being selected for a federal job. So the process of applying for a federal job is not easy. A lot of that can be put on the candidate. So I'll look back at some of my positions that I was applying for, and I simply wasn't reviewing the job announcement, or maybe I was reviewing the job announcement, but I was assuming that these duties and qualifications were what they were looking for. It's very important to spend some time to review the complete job announcement as you go through the process of applying for a job, because it happens all the time, and I was guilty of it as well. Just because you're applying for an HR position with the National Forest Service, it doesn't mean it's the same type of HR position with the Bureau of Land Management. There's different nuances that different hiring managers are looking for. So make sure that you review the job announcement and make sure that you're eligible for the positions that you're applying for. The next step is going to be to prepare your applications in USA Jobs. And this is something I have a conversation with people a lot. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with an individual yesterday who was telling me, oh yeah, I just hired this resume writer. He's going to write this resume for me. It's only going to be around $750 for this resume. And he's going to make it look, amazing. And I will say this, not that I would ever, tell someone not to do that. If you think career-wise, you have the financial ability to build yourself a resume, and you have the ability to have someone do it for you, then I'm not going to say that that's a bad thing. But what I will say is this: preparing your job in USA Jobs allows you to prepare your jobs through the resume tool builder that is already pre-built into USA Jobs. So it is going to give you all of the questions and all of the answers of what your resume is actually going to need as far as what hiring managers are looking for. So the hours that you're going to work each week, those type of things. It may seem very trivial, but that is how we as hiring managers can review someone's resume to ensure that they meet the qualifications and requirements for those jobs. And again, I'll say it, I've said it once, and I'll say it a couple more times. This is where Crystal and I can help you. If you have questions on the resume, don't hesitate to reach out. We can't tell you how to build your resume to answer each specific question, but what we can do is we can share with you what those hiring managers are looking for within the resume toolkit builder, so you can ensure that your resume has what those hiring managers are looking for. And then the last step in the process, and I would even go as far as to say almost last step in the process, is to submit your application to the agency. If you do not submit your application to the agency, they're not going to see it if you don't hit that button. It's also very important to make sure that when you see announcements go live on USA Jobs, there's two things that I want you to ensure that you're considering. Number one, the open date and the closing date. If you submit an application after the closing date that's listed on USA Jobs, those hiring managers do not have to accept it unless there was some sort of outlying circumstance why it was not submitted during the time frame that was initially given, number one. Number two, certain positions have a certain amount of candidates that they're looking for to apply, and then it'll close out. So what you'll see is you'll see an opening date when you can apply, and you'll see a closing date that says no applications will be received after this date. Underneath that, you're going to see in very fine print, or if we receive 25 or 50 or 75 candidates, the hiring manager can take how many applications they actually want to see. So pay close attention to your opening and your closing dates, but also pay close attention to how many applications submitted they will actually receive. Next slide, please.
That was some great insight, Milo. And I also put in the chat a resource that I wish I would have known about that USA Jobs offers is they offer events. The Bureau of Land Management, myself, Milo, and the other recruiters, we had an event on USA Jobs. And this was an event where this allows agencies to talk to people interested in different careers, and you get to learn about the agency. They also have a lot of how to write your federal resume that different agencies provide, how to interview for federal jobs. It's an awesome resource right on USA Jobs that you can use, and most of them are virtual, so you can attend from anywhere. And then next, let's go into the hiring pass. So federal hiring pass, this is extremely important. These are your eligibilities. This is what determines if you are eligible for a job. I'm just on this call, I would imagine a lot of people are eligible for jobs open to the public. These jobs are open to US citizens, and there's different icons, and all the positions on USA Jobs, they will have the hiring pass. They'll have the little icon to let you know if you can, if you're eligible to apply for that job. They'll also have like this called veterans. If you're individual with disabilities, there's jobs for Native Americans, recent graduates or students, which you all are. So you'll want to make sure you're looking at your eligibility, which is your federal hiring path, before you apply for a job. And the really cool thing that I like is that you can use the filters. So I consider it like shopping. I'm a shopper, so I like to shop. So when I'm shopping online, I don't want to see clothes in different sizes that I can't wear. I want to filter it to, see my size. So I know I don't want to be able to see things that I'm not going to be able to purchase. So make sure when you're using the USA Jobs that you're using filters. Maybe you want to filter it for only students and open to the public, or if you're a veteran, add that on there. That way you're seeing jobs that you're eligible to apply for, and you also can set that up when you're creating that profile, so you're getting those emails like Milo was saying. You want to get those right away because jobs open and close very quickly. I would say our average for BLM is jobs are open on there about 2 to 3 weeks. So you want to have time to really tailor your resume for each job. So getting those job announcements, looking at those hiring paths are things that you'll want to do and consider to be successful. So next slide, please.
So we kind of touched on this a little bit, Crystal, and I think you going through the filtering process within USA Jobs really is going to help candidates tailor what they're looking for. Your federal resume is what we see. One thing that I hear all the time is that, well, Milo, unfortunately, I keep submitting my resume, but I just can't get past the bots. And I would go as far as to say that I thought this as well prior to getting a job as a human resource specialist with the federal government. I thought, if I just copy and paste what the job description says, I'm going to be able to make it past the robots. There's really two things that I want to indicate on the resume process and getting past the bots. You have to make sure that you tailor your resume. You have to make sure that your relevant experience that you have had over the last 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 years, it needs to be relevant to the positions that you are applying for. Some of these jobs that come available on USA Jobs will have 3,000 candidates that apply, and we have to go through a lot of times positions will you won't hear anything back for a couple of months, and people are like, yeah, I submitted my resume, but it's been 2 months and I haven't heard anything back. And the reason why is because oftentimes we have to go through all 3,000 of those resumes page by page by page to review qualifications and relevant duties that an individual has as they're applying for those positions. We can never assume, as an HR manager and as an HR specialist, we can't assume that just because someone has worked 20 years in a HR role, they're going to have relevant experience for the position that they're applying for. So tailor your resume to the specific role. Elaborate. And what I mean by elaborate is be proud of yourself. Be proud of what you've done. Be proud of what you've accomplished. I did a lot of my schooling online just because I was a working adult. I was an individual that had a full-time job. I had have a wife. I've got a couple of kids. So I had to take classes that kind of worked around my schedule as a working adult. Um, you've done a lot, and of course continuing your education is so important, but talk about yourself, toot your own horn. Don't be afraid to turn that 1 to 2 page resume into a 20-page resume. As an HR specialist, and I cannot harp on this enough, elaborate on your skill set, elaborate on yourself, tell us about who you are, give us an idea in our mind of, what does Milo do? What's his formal education, but also what does Milo do informally? What type of volunteer activities does he do? Has he participated in an internship? Has he gone through the process of volunteering with an agency that is similar or the same as the agency that he's currently applying for a job for? So elaborate on your resume as much as you can. This is one that happens all the time, and I was guilty of it. Avoid simple mistakes. If USA Jobs is asking for a specific form or a specific document, don't withhold that document or don't submit something in that document's place without reaching out to an HR specialist or someone listed on that job announcement before you do. Because if I'll use this as an example, if the position you're applying for requires a 214, a DD 214 for a veteran, and you do not include the 214 in there, that would be enough for that HR manager to say, well, they didn't include the form. I see on their resume that they actually were in the service, but they didn't include that supporting document. That would then potentially exclude that individual from being considered because they did not avoid a simple mistake, and that was including all of the documents that are required for those specific jobs. So all of that being said, make your resume stand out, and specifically for the Bureau of Land Management, if you have questions on your resume, reach out to Crystal and I. Next slide, please.
Yeah, great information, Milo. So who is ready for a new adventure? As you can see, there's a lot of different careers. We need a lot of talent. We need a lot of different majors, different backgrounds to help us with this great mission. Between fire and biology and human resources and budget, we tried to capture some of these some of these careers with this image here. Feel free to go to usajobs.gov. Connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I know we're heavily on LinkedIn. Email us if you have questions. And I was just looking at some of the comment questions, and yes, as I was saying, somebody asked, do they offer workshops? Yes, there's workshops on building your resume. Make sure you're tapping into those because you're hearing from agencies on things they're looking for to help you tailor your resume. So we are so happy that you all are available today to talk with us about the different careers, but don't hesitate to contact us if you guys have any questions. But yeah, there's a lot of different opportunities. I cannot stress that pathways, getting in through those pathways opportunities, looking at specifically that federal internship portal for different opportunities, and USA Jobs setting up your account. So thank you so much. And we're going to go into a question and answer session. So next slide, please. So please feel free to, I guess you raising your hand coming off mute, and feel free to ask Milo and myself any questions that you guys might have.
And what I'll do, I'm going to actually show the next slide, which was both your contact information first, and then I'll stop sharing because then I can call on people that raise their hand. So contact information here if you want to take a snapshot, but I know you all have shared in the chat as well. So what I will do now is I will stop sharing. Awesome. All right. Oh, we had an active chat. I wasn't able to see. I love it. All right. First, Mesher, if you want to come off mute and ask a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Cool. Yes, my name's Ethan Messaker. I work at a land company in Wyoming. And I know that the Bureau of Land Management, like just because we run into you guys do a lot of stuff with the mineral rights that the states own, or the mineral rights that are federally owned, sorry. Are there current opportunities for people to work full-time doing land work with the Bureau?
Yes, there are. I know, especially in Alaska, I'm speaking for, since I'm the recruiter for Alaska. We have positions called land law examiners, and we hire a lot of those to look at who owns the land, giving land back to, especially in Alaska, different Alaska Native corporations and entities. But yes, there's a lot of different work that you can do. You'll just want to, the best thing I can tell you is our jobs open and close so quickly, making sure you're looking at different career opportunities, our careers page. I know Milo had put that into the chat, and seeing what those job titles are. That can be one of the hardest things is job titles. And job series. So making sure you're looking at those and getting those email notifications for when those jobs become available. But yeah, there are a lot of different opportunities.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Ethan, if I can just piggyback on what Crystal said, BLM manages, as you know, a lot of land in Wyoming. There's so much BLM land in Wyoming. We actually have a recruiter that he's a remote recruiter. He's actually out of Texas, but he is the recruiter for BLM Wyoming. So as we're going through this process, if you connect with myself or Crystal through LinkedIn, or if you shoot us an email, just remind us, and we would be more than happy to get you in contact with that recruiter that handles BLM Wyoming. And oftentimes, and I tell people this all the time, getting in contact with those professionals in your field, you'd be surprised if that recruiter from Wyoming gets you in contact directly with a land law examiner and you explain, hey, here's my background, I want to just know what you do. You'll go out probably on a tour with them. Like they'll take you out and show you exactly what they do. That way you can get a firsthand knowledge of, man, do I want to do this? Or you know what? It looked different online. It looked different in the videos. So yeah, don't hesitate. Crystal and I are always happy to make those connections.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll shoot you an email. You mentioned sage grouse, and the sage grouse in Wyoming are near and dear to my heart. So hope I can get some work on that.
Thanks, Ethan.
Awesome. Just a reminder to everybody, when you're asking questions about specific positions, definitely check out the job board. But just in general, as a more generic question, IT positions, are those generally remote? Are they in-person type positions at a specific site? How does that generally work for IT type roles?
Do you want to answer that, Crystal?
Yeah, it's a combination. Most agency-wide, if you're not remote, most positions have a telework policy. So we're currently, we're in the office 50% of the time. That's pretty much agency-wide. It does depend on positions. So if they're not specific IT remote roles, there is the option to be telework. So, you know, a combination of both. But like RJ said, the best thing to do is, and we were saying, to set up specifically, okay, I want IT roles only remote. So you're getting those notifications of those roles and that availability.
One thing I would say as well, specifically on IT, if anyone is out there interested in IT or cyber type of roles, the individual who manages all of the IT programs for the entire Bureau of Land Management, though he's a headquarters individual, he's located right here in Boise, Idaho. He's just, I'm not at work today, but he's just down the hall from me. So for me to print out a resume or for me to forward a resume on and say, hey, does High have does High have the skill set that you're looking for? Like, we can get answers directly from those hiring managers to help you kind of tailor your resume of what you're looking for.
Anybody have any additional questions? I see a couple people coming in. Does BLM offer internships?
Yes, we do. We do offer internships, and we spoke on that. We have the Pathways internships. And like Milo said, they typically, last year, those jobs, they come around about November, December timeframe. Yes, we have all different types of roles between engineering, IT, budget, you name it. We have different internships available. And like I said, checking out that federal internship portal. Also, even they're on usajobs.gov as well, but that federal internship portal specifically for federal internships, make sure you're checking out those opportunities, but we definitely do. And we have different types of internships. I'm sorry. We have, if you're in the service, getting out the service, we have the Skill Bridge program, which is an internship program. So we have different types of internship programs, but for the federal intern paid positions, that will be our Pathways program.
And then kind of going off of that too, Crystal, volunteer opportunities. Are those available for individuals that might be looking to get connected?
Yes, between volunteer.gov, you can check out different volunteer opportunities to get connected. I know in in the states that we have BLM offices, we have a public room where people can come in and talk, and there's different opportunities there. National Public Lands Day is coming up on September 28th. Be sure, if you're near a local BLM office, or I'm sure other agencies and different companies across the U.S. will be having events. I know up here in Alaska, we're having a big celebration, but that's on September 28th to see what you can do to volunteer. And thank you for that volunteer question, because that's a great point. If you were volunteering, I know a lot of you guys are students, you're volunteering during stuff, you're involved in maybe sororities, fraternities, different clubs, organizations, doing things with your church or whatever. Make sure you're putting those volunteer opportunities on your resume, and you'll list them under volunteer opportunities, just like you're listing a job, how many hours per week you work, the roles you had. So make sure you are getting those volunteer opportunities, and those do count for federal employment as experience. So make sure you're adding those volunteer opportunities on there.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on that real quick, and I don't want to completely, run this question into the ground, but when I applied for this position that I'm currently in, I had spent about 7 years. Idaho has a lot of wildfires. It's just the way it is. But for the 7 years prior to getting this job, I would take time either on the weekends or in the evenings, and I would go out with some of the Forest Service folks and the BLM folks to do reforestation projects just outside of Boise in the Boise National Forest, planting conifers. And it was great because, number one, I was outdoors, I was getting fresh air, I felt like I was giving back, but I was also meeting a lot of the people that were in the agency. So as I was applying for these roles, one of the questions came up of like, well, what's your knowledge of the Bureau of Land Management? And I said, oh yeah, no, I did some volunteer opportunities. Here's 3 examples. And oh, by the way, Jeff your wildlife biologist, I did a reforestation project with him, and also Amy, one of your lands and mineral rights individuals, I did a reforestation project with her. So then you start having these conversations, and the hiring managers get to see you as someone, not just as an individual applying for a job, but someone who has a passion for the agency, and that does carry a lot of weight. So like Crystal said, if you have the time, if you've got the resources, give a little bit of your time back. It goes a long way.
Awesome. Just a reminder too, when we're asking questions that might be specific to you, just the individual, follow up with Crystal and Milo on some of those questions. One question that did come in, as far as working for government type roles, with the salaries, are those pretty set in stone? Is there opportunity for growth with some of those? Could you just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. One thing you'll want to do is when you're looking at roles, they'll have a range, right? A really cool thing in the federal government is we have positions that are considered career ladder. So you might start, say, as a GS7, but the job you're applying for might be a career ladder and have what we call a promotion potential to a GS11. So you might start at that GS7. Typically in the federal government, a lot of jobs, I know that there are exceptions to this rule, even within our agencies, but you'll start as a 7, then the next year you'll go to a 9, and then the next year you'll go to 11. If you're, doing good on your EPAP, your evaluations, and making satisfactory progress. So when you're looking at roles, look to see what that promotion potential. You might start at one level, but within 2 years be at another. So that's something you'll want to look at. Also, when you're applying for jobs, and maybe it says, okay, they'll ask you when you're applying for the job, what is the lowest grade level you're willing to take? Well, it'll be set, for instance, in the case I'm giving you, 7, 9, 11. Maybe if you choose an 11 and the HR specialist looks at your application and your resume and it's like, oh man, this person doesn't qualify, you might be setting yourself up not to get referred. So if you put that lower level, you'll say you accept it. If you get an interview, you get offered the job, that's a time where you can negotiate and tell them, hey, I have this experience, but you don't want to put yourself out before you have the opportunity. So really looking at those jobs, looking at the career potential, doing some research to say, oh, I'm starting here, but after I do this job, I can go into that. Those are the types of things you'll really want to look at.
Yeah, if I can hit on that real quick too, just to caveat that, there are the GS systems, which I think everybody in the federal government knows about, but you also have to take into consideration that there are other pay grades as well. So you have, for example, I just posted a position this morning. It's a WG, so it's a wage grade position. So even though the federal government, most people think of GS, there's a lot of other pay scales and pay ranges that you can actually qualify for. On top of that, what I would say is that there are some hard and fast rules with regards to what education level you have and what does that convert to, what skills do you have and what does that convert to, and that's where the hiring manager and the HR specialist work together to determine what availabilities there are. But there are also availabilities to negotiate within that process. So if you are accepted into a role and you receive a tentative job offer, at that point you have the flexibility to negotiate different ranges at that point as well.
Yeah, great points. Thank you, Milo.
You bet.
Any other questions that people might have?
One question I just wanted to hit on, if I can, RJ, is an individual asked a question about cybersecurity jobs, and I want to answer that question not focused specifically on cyber, but on just jobs as a whole. USA Jobs changes literally by the hour. As folks like myself and Crystal are building positions inside of USA Jobs and then releasing them for public consumption, jobs are being filled, jobs are being listed. It's a constant kind of moving system. So just because you don't see a cyber position now, or just because you don't see a wildlife biologist position now, things are always changing. So just be aware of that. There are certain cycles that we go through, but always monitor, and like Crystal said, filter USA Jobs to take the guesswork out of having to monitor it all the time. Just get that one email that pops up at midnight every single night of the positions that you're interested in, because it's always moving.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you can set something where it has certain parameters that it'll send you those positions as well, correct?
Absolutely. Those
Yeah.
filters are key. You know, I don't want to see, maybe you only want to see jobs in Idaho or only in Alaska or in multiple states or only jobs open to students. You can set that up.
Awesome. Any other questions?
And one thing I wanted
Oh,
to
go
say,
ahead.
and Crystal, you had kind of made mention of this earlier, and I think you said it appropriately, but I just wanted to make sure that individuals understand that if you're looking for a remote or if you're looking for a hybrid type of opportunity, oftentimes I would say keep your location parameters open. And I say that because some jobs are listed as location negotiable after selection. And if you put on there that you're only interested in a remote role, you may not see positions that are negotiable after selection. So if you apply for a job, and we just had this happen for one of our HR positions, it was negotiable after selection. She lives in Mesa, Arizona. She does not plan to move from Mesa, Arizona. The position was able to negotiate to keep her in Mesa, Arizona. So just if you're interested in hybrid or remote opportunities, I would say keep your filters open, because that's just going to give you the option to potentially see those additional roles.
That's a great point. And there's not a filter for location negotiable. I've been trying to search for it. I can't find that. So make sure what you can do is maybe you will have you can do multiple filters, right? You can have multiple emails coming for different things. So that's another option as well.
Awesome. Well, I did want to wrap up and just first thank you both Crystal and Milo for jumping in, presenting to our populations here at WGU. Just a reminder, session is being recorded. That recording will be sent out probably later on this afternoon into the early evening, depending on where you're located. So a lot of information was covered today. If you want to go back and reference anything that was covered, you can certainly do so in that recording. Also, there is going to be a questionnaire attached to it. Again, should take you no more than 2 minutes to fill out. We value your opinion here at WGU as students and alum. So we're certainly looking for that feedback. But big thank you, Crystal, Milo, for jumping in, sharing insight, fantastic stuff. So we certainly thank you all for doing that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, RJ, for having us. Thank you, students, for attending. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. Take care.